Welcome back, everybody. John here with the Moore's Global Finance podcast team. And we're doing a deep dive today into a story with a little bit of glam, a whole lot of caution, and some big lessons for anyone thinking about precious metals as an investment.
Yeah, that's right. I'm Tiffany, and we're going to be unpacking the rise and fall of Oxford Gold Group, a company that was really a big player in the precious metal world, but shut down amid some serious allegations.
Now, you might be thinking, why are we talking about a company that's already gone under? Well, I think sometimes the best learning experiences come from seeing what went wrong.
Yeah, definitely. Oxford Gold Group's story is like a cautionary tale, a masterclass in what not to do when it comes to investing. And by understanding their missteps, you can become a much smarter investor, especially if you're thinking about precious metals.
Okay, so let's set the scene a little for anyone who might not be familiar with this world. Precious metals, gold especially, have always had this sort of mystique, this image of being a safe haven when the economy gets a little shaky.
Right? It's that tangible asset that people can hold on to literally when things feel a little bit uncertain. And that's a sentiment that Oxford Gold Group really tapped into. They were founded in 2017 by Patrick Granfar and Kelsey Schuler, and they set up shop in, get this, Beverly Hills, California.
Beverly Hills.
Yeah.
Talk about image, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that location alone probably gave them a sense of, I don't know, exclusivity and success.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It created this impression of prestige, like you're dealing with the top tier of the industry. And that can be really persuasive, especially for investors who might be new to precious metals and are looking for reassurance.
So let's get into what Oxford Gold Group actually offered. I know they had two main sides to their business, right?
Yeah, they did. First, they handled gold IRAs. Those are retirement accounts that let you hold physical precious metals like gold, silver, platinum, palladium, instead of traditional assets like stocks and bonds.
So instead of having, numbers on a screen, you could actually have gold bars tucked away somewhere, like a scene from a movie.
Exactly. It appeals to that desire for something tangible, something that you feel like you have direct control over. The second part of their business was direct sales of precious metals. You could buy coins or bars from them and have them delivered or stored in a secure facility.
So they kind of covered the whole spectrum from retirement planning to just straight up buying gold. Did they do pretty well for a while?
They did. Initially, Oxford Gold Group had really great reviews from customers. People were really happy with their knowledgeable staff, the one-on-one attention they received, and the smooth process overall. They seemed to be building a solid reputation.
But obviously we know things took a turn. What were some of the first signs, some of the things that should have made people pause and think, maybe something's not quite right here?
Well, one of the first red flags that started showing up were these complaints about delays in delivery. Customers who had bought precious metals were waiting longer and longer to get their orders.
Yeah, I can imagine how frustrating that would be. You've invested a significant amount of money. You're expecting to get your hands on these tangible assets, and then they
Almost
just don't show up.
Exactly. And it wasn't just a few isolated cases, it started to become more and more common. And when you're talking about something as valuable as precious metals, delays like that really start to raise concerns about a company's competence or even their integrity.
Right. It's not like ordering a book online where a delay is just a minor inconvenience. This is people's financial security we're talking about. Did it get worse than just delays?
Unfortunately, it did. In some cases, those delays turned into items never being delivered. People were paying for these precious metals and then nothing. They just never received their purchases. And that's when things started to look a bit more sinister, like maybe something else was going on.
Yeah, I mean, when you start seeing a pattern of non-deliveries, that's a big red flag. It suggests that a company might be taking money without actually having the metals to back those purchases up. So it's not just like a simple mix-up or a logistical hiccup anymore. This is starting to sound like potential fraud, which is scary for anyone who invested with them.
Right. And it's not just about the financial loss, which is obviously a huge deal, but it's also about the violation of trust. You're putting your faith in a company to safeguard your assets, and when that trust is broken, it can be really damaging.
So people are starting to realize that their metals aren't arriving.
Yeah.
What did they do? Did they try to contact Oxford Gold Group to get answers?
Of course, people were desperately trying to reach them, but that's when another major problem popped up. Basically, a communication breakdown. Customers were saying that they couldn't get a hold of anyone. Calls went unanswered, emails bounced back. And even when they did manage to connect with someone, the responses were vague and didn't really address their concerns.
It's like adding insult to injury, right?
Yeah.
You're already worried that you might have lost your investment, and then you can't even get a straight answer from the company.
Exactly. It creates this sense of panic and helplessness, and it just further erodes any trust that might have been left.
Right. I can only imagine the anxiety those investors must have been feeling. So you have all these complaints piling up, allegations of fraud, and a company that's gone completely silent. Sounds like a recipe for disaster. What happened next?
Well, all of this caught the attention of the Better Business Bureau, the BBB.
Right, the BBB, they're all about holding businesses accountable and promoting ethical practices. If they get involved, it's serious business.
For sure. So the BBB launched a formal investigation into Oxford Gold Group. They were looking into those customer complaints, the allegations of non-delivery, the communication issues, the whole 9 yards.
And what did they find? What was the result of that investigation?
Well, the BBB ended up revoking Oxford Gold Group's accreditation. That's a really big deal because it means the BBB no longer considered them a trustworthy business. Essentially, it was a public warning to stay away.
Wow, that's a huge blow to a company's reputation.
Right.
So you have these allegations, the BBB warning, and a company that's gone radio silent. What did Oxford Gold Group do in response to all of this pressure?
Faced with all of this scrutiny, Oxford Gold Group did something that surprised everyone. They shut down, completely and without warning.
They just disappeared, like vanished into thin air.
Pretty much. Their website went offline, their phones were disconnected, and all communication just stopped. Poof. Gone.
That's wild. What about the investors who were left hanging? What happened to their money and their precious metals?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And as of right now, there's no clear answer. There haven't been any public reports of legal action taken against Oxford Gold Group's owners or executives, and no one seems to know where those missing precious metals are.
So all those people who trusted this company, who invested their hard-earned savings, they're left in limbo, not knowing if they'll ever see their money or their metals again.
It's a really unfortunate situation. It highlights the fact that even in a regulated industry like finance, things can go wrong. And sometimes those responsible might not face immediate consequences.
It's a reminder that as investors, we have to be our own advocates. Do our research and not just blindly trust a company just because of its promises or fancy marketing.
Absolutely. The Oxford Gold Group case is a lesson in being informed and proactive. You can't just assume a company is legitimate because they're located in Beverly Hills or have some good reviews online.
Okay, so we've seen how things went wrong for Oxford Gold Group and its investors. But what about those of us who are still interested in precious metals as an investment strategy?
Right. It's important to remember that what happened with Oxford Gold Group doesn't mean the entire precious metals market is bad. There are many reputable companies out there that offer safe and secure ways to invest in gold, silver, and other precious metals.
So how do we tell the difference between a company like Oxford Gold Group and one that's actually reliable and ethical? What are the signs to look for, the questions to ask to avoid making the same mistakes those Oxford Gold Group investors made?
That's the big question, and it's one we'll dive into after a short break.
Okay, so we talked about the red flags, but let's flip that around. What does a good precious metals company look like? How can we as investors make sure we're not, falling into a trap?
That's really the key takeaway here, right? Oxford Gold Group is gone, but the need for smart investing is always going to be there. The first thing I'd say is look for a company with a solid track record, not just a couple of years in business, but a real history in the industry.
Okay, so more than just flashy marketing.
Got it.
What else?
Transparency is super important. Can you easily find information about their fees, their storage practices, their buyback policy? If a company is being vague or making it hard to find that information, that's a red flag for sure.
It's like they say sunlight is the best disinfectant, right? Especially with finances.
Absolutely. And don't just rely on what a company says about themselves. Read reviews from other investors. Check out independent publications that focus on precious metals. Places like CoinWorld or websites like goldsilver.com. Those sources often have unbiased analysis and can give you a more complete picture.
You mentioned storage. That's something that's always made me a bit nervous with precious metals. How do you make sure your investment isn't just sitting in some random warehouse somewhere?
That's a great question. Reputable companies are going to use high-security, third-party storage facilities, places like Brinks or Delaware Depository. These facilities are like Fort Knox, with tons of security, 24/7 monitoring, biometric access, the whole 9 yards. Plus, they offer something called segregated storage.
Segregated storage, what's that?
With segregated storage, your metals are kept separate from everyone else's holdings. This means you're guaranteed to get back the exact same bars or coins that you bought, not just an equivalent amount of metal. It just adds that extra layer of security and peace of mind.
You're not getting just some generic gold bar that's been swapped around who knows how many times this thing.
Okay, what else should investors be looking for?
Don't underestimate good customer service. A trustworthy company will have knowledgeable staff who can answer your questions clearly and quickly. They should be patient guide you through everything, and never pressure you into anything. Right, because all this can be pretty complicated, especially if you're new to investing in precious metals. You want someone who can break things down and make you feel comfortable.
Mm.
Are there any companies in particular that you recommend people look into? I know we can't endorse anyone, but just to give our listeners a starting point.
Sure. Companies like Goldco, Augusta, Precious Metals, and American Hartford Gold are often mentioned for their transparency, their ethical practices, and their good customer service. But again, the most important thing is to do your own research. Read those reviews, compare fees, and see what works best for you.
Great advice. It's all about being informed and taking control of your investments, right? Not just blindly trusting someone or getting caught up in hype.
Exactly. And remember, even with a very reputable company, diversification is still super important. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, the precious metals basket. Spread your investments across different types of assets to make your portfolio more balanced and resilient.
So if we had to sum up the biggest lesson from this whole Oxford Gold Group situation, what would it be?
I think it's this trust but verify. Don't let a company's location, their marketing, or some initial good reviews make you think everything is fine. Do your homework, ask questions, and be your own advocate.
Well said. Knowledge is power. And when it comes to investing, it can mean the difference between success and a really costly mistake.
That's right. And remember, these principles apply to any investment you might be thinking about. Do your research, understand the risks, and never stop learning.
I couldn't agree more. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the Oxford Gold Group case. Hopefully this has given you some things to think about and some tools to help you navigate precious metals investing and really just investing in general.
Until next time, stay informed and invest wisely.